Hello friends, today we are going to see about Heroku platform, what it is, why it is needed, and we are going to deploy a very simple play application on top of this app and this platform. So in earlier times, the application deployment process was vastly different from what it is today. We used to deploy application, copy the source code to a server, and then we used to run that. Nowadays, in the cloud-based systems, the way of application deployment has changed. They are more repository oriented, continuous integration oriented, and it has to be a pipeline kind of a flow from which your code flows, gets built up, gets deployed, tested in a series of steps. So, without going into those details, we are going to focus on three major parts of cloud computing: the infrastructure as a service, the platform as a service, and the software as a service, in which you have providers like AWS or Microsoft Azure in the infrastructure space, providers like Heroku, Nodejitsu, CloudBees, and others in the platform space, and software as service like Gmail, Salesforce. They're basically software provided as services. We are going to talk about Heroku platform. So you just have to visit the site heroku.com and create an account there. I've already created, so I will log in. Once I log into this website, I'm going to see a list of my applications which I've built. So broadly, the flow is like this. You create an application, you assign a repository, a source code Git repository to that application. You commit the changes on that Git repository and push the changes. That application gets built and deployed by Heroku continuous integration platform to a Heroku system. Then you can basically go and check out that application there. So apart from focusing on your application logic and pushing the application to Git and verifying it on the deployment, the whole system of continuous integration, building, infrastructure management has been taken care by the platform. So you don't have to worry about that. So here I see my two applications. One of the application is a play application, play framework application. You can see here there can be a variety of different languages supported by Heroku. These are supported using build packs. So you have build packs for Java, you have build packs for Clojure, for Scala, for all these PHP, Ruby, Python, Node, all the popular languages and frameworks have build packs. When you commit your code to a repository and you push it, Heroku is basically going to pull the code out of there. It's basically going to clone that repository and it will identify what kind of build pack or what is the type of the project you are running. For example, if you have a pom.xml file, it will identify it to be a Java project. If you have a build.sbd file, it will identify it to be a Scala project. If it is having requirements.txt, it will identify it to be a Python project. If it's going to have a gem file, it's going to recognize it as a Ruby project. If it's going to have an index.php, or it is going to have uh, some JSON file, I don't remember the name, configure composer.json, I guess. If it's going to have that file, it's going to identify it as a PHP project. So right now we have created an application. You can just create a new application by clicking on the plus sign on the top right. You give an application name and a region and you just create the app. Right now we have already created that app. Okay. And basically this app is created. When an app is created, it is assigned one repository to which the source code of this app belongs to. Heroku by default assigns one repository and one deployment URL to this application. You can assign number of dynos, which are basically kind of containers which run your app. Not going to go into details of dynos, the type of dynos, but you can think of them as miniature virtual machines, which basically are hosting your app. Not exactly virtual machine, some kind of a container isolation is there. So processes between two containers are separated out of, and these dynos are running on the infrastructure of Heroku, which is on top of AWS infrastructure. And Heroku is using Ubuntu Linux as the operating system. Dynos can be of three types basically: web dyno, worker dyno, and one-off dyno. Web dyno is basically the web application on which the web application runs. Worker dyno is basically for some kind of a background tasks, some cron jobs, archiving, some kind of batched kind of jobs. Worker dynos can be used. One of dyno is basically some kind of a dyno which is short-lived, usually used for logging into other dynos from the local terminal. Apart from dynos, you can have add-ons. Heroku provides a huge list of add-ons which are kind of plugins which you can plug into your app and basically use those services. So you have the app add-ons for data store, we have add-ons for caching, for errors and exception, logging, monitoring metrics, testing, so many kind of user management. All these add-ons are there. You can enable those add-ons against your app and use those services. One of the add-ons is already activated with my app. It's a Heroku Postgres database which is attached to my app, and I can use this in my app using the provided uh, host name and user credential and the database name which is provided to me. Okay. What I'm going to do now is basically, and before that, there are other tabs here. Basically, the Git repository for Heroku is mentioned here, right? You can do these processes to basically change the source code and push it. You can observe the metrics, you can observe the activity, the access rights, the settings of the application, right? It has identified to be a Play 2 Java framework. All these repo size, slug size, so all these terms and concepts like what is a repo, what is a slug, what is the stack in Heroku, what is the region, how is framework determined using build packs, what are releases. These are all different terms which you can find on the Heroku website and also on their training and tutorial videos. So what we are going to do before that, like config vars, which are just like environment variables which are stored in a dyno, and you can use those environment variables from within your code using the language specific environment variables accessing, like for example in Java you can do a system.get property to access an environment variable. What we are going to do is basically I'm going to go to the URL of the application. Okay, I'm going to go to this particular URL and see what it says. Okay, it's basically showing me a message, hello Play 2. It's a Play 2 app. Now we're going to see the source code of this app. The basic Play framework application, nothing fancy about it. You have an app, you have configuration, application, routes. All the requests on this path go to this controller. I can see the controller basically doing nothing but in this just sending a response back with this message. So what we are going to do, we are going to change this message so that the different message goes to the view in here, and here it goes to the main template has different content, and content is displayed here. What you are going to do is basically change a simple part. We are just going to change this message, and we are going to see that the changes are reflected on the live web application also. This is a simple change which I have done. Obviously for the production setup and real development, I'm going to test this locally. I'm going to run my test cases, then run my functional test cases, and all the testing needs to be done. But this is just for a demo. I'm just going to deploy it directly to production. So what I can do is basically open a terminal and go to the directory of the application. This is the directory where my application is residing. As you can see, folder structure, it's a play app. What I'm going to do is, and this is the most important part, I mean, one of the important parts I can say, I have made some changes in the application. So we should focus now on how fast and iterative this application development process can become. You make change, commit, push, that's it. You make change, commit, push, gets deployed. No need to worry about infrastructure. So we are going to do just that. We are going to commit this file. We are going to say git commit controllers application.java. I'm going to give a message. Now we are going to do a push. Where will we push? We are going to push on a remote which has already been created by Heroku. This remote was created when I created this application. Right? So basically when I create an application using the tool belt, the Heroku tool belt is a set of command line utilities with which you can manage your Heroku instances. When I created an app, this particular remote was added to the app. You go to the you can see in this deploy part some instructions for doing that. So we are just going to basically push this code changes hero git push heroku to this particular remote, and we are going to push the master branch. It's going to ask me my password. I don't have it right now, so I will going to ask Heroku using the Heroku tool belt command line. I'm going to say auth token. It's my token which I'm going to use, and the application gets deployed on Heroku. It is deploying, it is basically building the sources. The build pack is basically working to build the source. As you can see, it is going to install all the dependencies which are required for this application. This is the most important part of platform as a service, where you basically focus only on your code and your application logic, and you basically leave the infrastructure management and handling and platform to the service which you are using. So you don't have to worry about the infrastructure. You can scale up, scale down on demand. You basically focus on your application logic and its dependencies and how you are going to improve that application. You are going to build new features into the application, new functionality into the application, rather than worrying about, how I'm going to run this, or worry about my infrastructure going down, or all these things. How I'm going to set up new database instances, how I'm going to handle MongoDB or Redis, how I'm going to basically set up messaging systems, how I'm going to glue all these things up, how I'm going to basically connect all these things to work perfectly, and what if something goes down. See, a lot of headache is there when you're doing this manually. So these kind of platforms have taken responsibility to do that for you. so that you just focus on your application logic. So we are going to see that this is getting deployed on a particular URL. When we visit that URL, we are going to see the changes which we have made in our code. Change a simple message. So this is a very simple app, can be a very complex business application as well, which is using a lot of services which Heroku offers. Like it can be using a relational database, it can be using a caching service, a messaging service, a logging service, a dashboarding service, a monitoring service. And it's basically combining all these services and using these to build a highly scalable global app. So we are going to see whether our application is deployed or not. It's still compressing. Usually it doesn't take this much time. I don't know why this is taking this much time today. But usually it gets done within a minute. Okay. So as you can see, this URL has been deployed to Heroku, right? So when we go to this, we have changed the message to Hello World Heroku. We are going to refresh this, and we should expect to see the new message which is appearing here, right? So this is a small change which we did in our ID, just did a git push and it came here. And we can scale this application to as much as we want, right? So this is the power of the platform as a service in cloud computing. You can build your applications which can have different dependencies and which can have different usages of different kind of services, and the whole platform basically provides your application all those services in a reliable and a scalable way. And you can build those applications using all these services and dependencies, and you can release this application in the world without worrying too much about the infrastructure or the things going down or the database is not accessible, all these things, right? So this was a small beginners kind of a tutorial or a session on Heroku. I hope you have got good information out of it. Plenty of information on the internet, just Google it and you will see a lot of documents, articles, videos. Whatever you understand, it's good. If you don't understand, you can just let me know. I will try to answer your questions. And with this, I will end this session and I hope to see you in the future sessions also. All right. Thank you.